As quilters, we get excited with a finished quilt top or pillow top, but there's still more to do. We need to get that finished, and sometimes we're not quite sure how to do that. Well, this is that for me, and I'm Leah Louise from Inspired Quilting by Leah Louise, and I have some great ideas for you. Check out these pillows behind me. Remember those beautiful French rose pillows we made last week? Well, I'm finishing them up, I'm getting them done, but I want to show you how to make the absolutely easiest pillow cover, the envelope pillow cover. There are some variations that make it quite spectacular, and we're going to talk about that today. So let's get started. Remember this French rose pillow from last week? Oh my goodness, it has been such fun. And I made a pair of these pillows. They're going to be gifts, and I'm really excited about getting them finished and ready to go, because these are going to be gifts for two little special girls who are going to love it. Now, what I want to show you, I'm making it easy on the outside by making it a rag edge, and I put some extra flannel in as layers to thicken it up. But what I want to show you is there are a number of ways you can make pillows, and one of the most common ways to make a pillow cover is with an envelope closing, and that means the two pieces in the back come together and overlap each other, and that's your pillow. It's very simple and easy to make. Now, what I do that's simply different is put a little Velcro in there, especially when it's for kids, because I want that back to stay closed. Now, I want to prepare you. This is quite the wild, bright, bold, and beautiful backing. Oh my goodness. Does that look like it's not right out of the 60s or what? I'm not even sure where this fabric came from, but these girls are pink and purple fans, and I know they're going to love it. So what I did here is I did make, it's sort of like an envelope back. There's a small narrow piece here and the larger piece, and I used Velcro in order to hold it all together. And it goes together quite simply, and we just start with the front. I'm just going to get that Velcro there. We start with the front, and we want to make the back the same size. So I'm going to show you today how to make pillow covers like this, and then you can get creative. I added some extra batting and I did some quilting, but you don't have to do that. These pillows can also be very, very simple. Let me show you what I'm talking about, and we're going to get started on making some beautiful pillow covers. Throw pillows are great to have around, and making a pillow cover is really quite simple, and it's fun to be able to switch around, whether it be for seasonal changes or celebrations or making gifts for somebody. And I want to show you one of the easiest ways to make a pillow cover. This is what's called an envelope pillow. And it's called that because it works just like an envelope, where it overlaps and it holds itself together. There's nothing required, no zippers, buttons, or anything like that. It just stays in place, it holds the pillow inside, and it's wonderful. Now, the other pillow I want to show you is similar. It's also an envelope, but what I did here was do some color blocking. And so just like this, we did the one piece on the front, but then I put two colors on the back. You see on this one, it's the same fabric, which is fine and it looks great. But what fun to change it up. Just look at how playful and bright and fun doing something like this. So I want to show you how to make these kinds of pillows so you can get ready for spring and make some beautiful pillows for yourself and for others to enjoy. So let's get started. I want to show you how to make these. And just look at how pretty this pillow is. And the double colors on the back, splitting it down the center. It's, it creates a match set, but yet the colors are very different, vibrant, and I think it's wonderful. It's a great way to make a pillow, and it's so simple and easy. I hope you'll give one of these methods a try. They're a lot of fun. We're starting with an 18-inch pillow form. Basic means least expensive. It's simple and there's nothing complicated about it, and that's where I go because that's where you can get the best price. And I have a nice pillow. It's filled with polyfill, And if you want, there is a zipper if you want to stuff it fuller, depending on how you like your pillows. Then we want to start with our pillow cover. Now let's say you have a pillow form already and you don't know what size it is. Just take your tape measure and measure from seam to seam. And you get 18 inches, and it's going to be the same in the other direction. So that's always very easy to do. We are making the absolute simplest and quickest pillow cover that you can do. A single piece of fabric. Nothing's easier than that. Actually, you can make it with a ½ yard of fabric for an 18-inch pillow. So let me show you how this works. You want to get your ½ yard of fabric. Make sure it's 18 inches because that's our pillow dimension, and 42, but we want to trim it down. Ideally, you can get a 42-inch piece. You can squeak away with about a 41-inch, but I wouldn't want to go any less than that. So if you're getting a fabric that has, the width of fabric is less than 41 inches after the selvages are removed, you might want to look at something else. There are some other options I'll show you along the way that you might be able to do, and we can talk about that. So I have cut a piece of fabric that is 18 inches wide by 42 inches. Now the reason we need the 42 inches is our pillow is 18 inches in each direction. So we need 18 on the back and we need 18 on the front. That's 36 inches. Then we're going to add an extra 6 inches in order to allow our overlay for the envelope closing. And 36 plus another 6 is 42 inches. You can get away with less, but this is an ideal situation. So what I do is I take my fabric and I put it right side up. And I lay it out and I center it so that I have my 18 inches and I see right where my lines are. So I have pinned these already, and that's where my 18-inch pillow is. What I'm going to do now is, this is optional, but I do recommend it. Go ahead and fold at these 18-inch edges, and you're going to fold in this way and press it so that you've got a good pressed line, and do the same on both ends. What we're going to do at this point is just take the narrowest seam, an eighth of an inch. You know, press a foot on there and bump your needle all the way over to the side, and just sew along this edge. We don't want a seam allowance. That's not necessary. All we're doing is giving the pillow a better shape. By having a seam at the top and the bottom, that's going to square up your pillow and keep it in its shape instead of potentially wanting to roll back and forth a little bit. When you have two corners and it's not sewn from corner to corner, you may have your pillow cover kind of shifting on you, or maybe even going a little askew. So by doing this is going to help line things up and keep it lined up as long as that pillow form is inside the pillow cover. All right, so we've done our corners, or our sides here. And then the next thing we need to do is finish our edges. And what's going to happen is we'll have one piece go down and the other piece will go on top. So we need to finish both of these edges. Now ordinarily with a 42-inch piece of fabric, you would just turn it over maybe a quarter to no more than ½ an inch. And I double fold it just because I don't like raw edges on my fabrics and, you know, have string shredding inside my pillow. So I fold it over twice, I press it, and then I'm going to come and sew here, and I do the same on this side. And I have here, if you can see, we look down underneath, our pillow overlap from here to here is 6 inches. That's more than what we need. This piece of fabric was a wider piece than 42 inches, so I think I have about a 44-inch piece of fabric. Now I can go in and I can cut off an inch or two, but I think what I'm going to do instead is just take this and open it up and press 1 inch and 1 inch. So that way it'll be a little bit wider of a a band there where it overlaps, but I'm okay with that. That'll probably add just a little more stability to that seam right there. Alternatively, if you're on the scant side and you are at about a 41-inch length, you're going to want to make this as narrow as possible. And what I would probably do is press it a 1/2 inch like this, and then I want to make sure you can see this, and then fold this over this way. So it's pressed, and then we're just going to pinch it, fold it in, and then turn it like that and sew right on that edge. So by pressing it first, you have a seam to work with, you have a fold, a line to work with, and then all you have to do is fold this outer raw edge in to meet that fold, and you've got a great spot, easy to align and sew. Now I would go through and press this before you sew it, just so it's going to make it easier. Once it's pressed, it's going to fall naturally. It's just going to fall into that position because that's the way the fibers of the threads of the fabric have been pressed. So that's the next step. I'm going to go ahead and sew this little tiny seam here and here, and then I'm going to sew my outer edges. And like I said, I'm going to take mine a little wider. This is optional. And this is what I was saying, if you have less than the 41 inches, the other option you can do is, let's say you have another piece of fabric. Let's just get something like this. And you can take a piece and sew it on with a seam and fold it over and kind of just make a band across the back. And that's kind of a fun look. Now, it's a little more sewing, but it's workable, and that's going to make a width of fabric work better for you, and instead of, cutting up more pieces from an extra 1/2 yard. This way, 1/2 yard of fabric. It's quick, it's easy, and it's economical, and that's kind of what I'm going for. I would add a band before I get into, cutting up more fabric to extend this a bit longer. So let me go ahead and get these sewn this way, and I'll get this piece sewn this way, and then we're going to finish our pillow. There is probably less than 10 minutes of sewing on this. You're going to love it. It is so simple. Let me get started. I'm ready to sew the inner seam that I'm going to create. It's sort of a fake seam, but just a little 1/8 inch seam along the edge. And my fabrics are right side together, so that this will be on the inside of the pillow. Now I'm going to take my needle and move it over, because that will line it right up to the edge. So if I line my fabric right along the side of my presser foot, the needle is going to go down right in there. So see, I'm going to get just on top of those feed dogs. And let's make sure, there we go. Okay, and when you're doing something precise, particularly tiny, small, minuscule like this, you want to measure your fabric to your presser foot. That's where you want to keep your eye. If you keep your eye on the needle, you're going to be more apt to rove around. So line your fabric, find out what works, where the best place is, and then you can just go through, and you can actually do it quickly because your eye is watching where the fabric is going, and that needle is going to sew wherever you direct the fabric. So that's really a good tip for, that's my pin words, where my pin was there. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to cut this. We'll turn it over and do the other side. But see, we just took a very, very narrow seam right there. And now we'll do it on the other side. The second side is ready. I line this up just the same way. Now, whenever I start a new sewing project, whether it be a quilt or, I'm going to do a group of pillows or something like that, I always start with a new needle. It doesn't take much sometimes for a needle to get dull. And when you get a dull needle, what happens is it pushes through the fabric more harshly. And have you ever sewn along and you notice you get little pulls in your fabric? That's not uncommon if you're using the wrong needle when you're sewing knits. But even when you're doing a woven fabric like this, you can have that kind of a problem, and that's because your needle is getting blunt and it's pushing the fabric through instead of piercing through the fabric. And that's just kind of something you want to avoid, because that doesn't look very nice. All right, so I'm going to put my needle back in the center position just because that's where I'm more comfortable. And I'm going to sew to the inside. Now, like I said, I went ahead and I widened this up because it would have been too much of an overlay. Optionally, you could have trimmed it down and make a narrower piece. It just depends on what you prefer. Now, I'm going to line this fold right up to the inside of my presser foot right there. And so that's going to allow me to sew nice and straight and have a good line. Now, for this particular fabric, it's sort of a corally pink color. And get that needle out of the way, or excuse me, that pin. And the batik, the pattern, is white. So I'm using a white thread. Matching a color like this can be a challenge. So I'd rather use the white and have it be a contrast that works with the rest of the pattern of the fabric than try and use a color that doesn't match. And that's not always attractive. So I'm going to do a double stitching on this. So I did my first, and now I'm going to turn it over and do this side. And I turn it over because I want to make sure that I'm following this edge. If I do it from the inside, if there's a fold that may have moved or shifted while I was sewing, I want to make sure I get a good clean sew here. And I'm just going to take it in at, about 1/8 of an inch. It doesn't need to be far. It's not unlike just a top stitch. And we're going to go from one end to the other. This is also a place where you could add a decorative stitch along here, or you could put some decorative ribbon. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can dress up a very simple, easy pillow. I'm not worried about that because I'm just going for easy all the way. All right, so I have this side done, and I have one more side to go. And remember, double check and make sure you're sewing this to the inside, to the wrong side of the fabric. Last thing you want to do is find out, oops, I did it the wrong way. All right, now I'm going to sew this to this side. Oh no, actually, how did I do that? I did it in the middle. That was when I was doing the little mini seams on the ends. So I'm going to keep this right here, and I'm going to let my fabric just lead into the presser foot. Keep it folded. And keep moving along. And again, by lining up that folded edge, you get a nice straight seam. And then I'm just going to come down on the outside, and we'll line this side up as well, and we're off. Okay, that's finished. All we have left are the side seams, and that goes so quick. This is a fast finish, let me tell you. With all that sewing complete, I did some pressing. These little tiny seams on the top and bottom, I just pressed to the back, and then I just gave an extra press to the outside where these edges were sewn. Now, what we want to do is put our fabric right side up. This is where we are going to determine which is going to be laid across first and just how far. Now, you want to make sure that the piece that is going to be coming from the top of the pillow to the bottom of the pillow is on the outer surface, and the one coming from the bottom of the pillow goes underneath. So we know that this is the top of our pillow. This is the upward position, so this piece is going to come down first. And this way, when the pillow is turned right side out, this is the piece that's going to come down. And you want it to come maybe just a little bit past center. Mine's going to fall pretty much in the center spot, and that's okay. I'm not too worried about it. But for the finesse of some pieces, I do prefer to have it that way. But honestly, if I'm getting away with a quick pillow and a single piece of fabric, I don't get too darn fussy. Okay, so see, here's our overlay. It's about 3.5 to 4 inches. So that's going to work out really good. And we just want to pin this. We want to pin both of these sewn ends because we don't want them to slip out and not get sewn in. Just make sure that one's all the way through. And you also want to make sure that they're pulled pretty taut. Don't let there be loose where this seam comes in like this, because then this piece is going to buckle open and it's not going to lay well. So we just want to let everything lay nice and flat. We'll get it pinned, and then all we're going to do is sew about a 1/4 inch seam. We don't need any more than that. Now I will double sew it because the corners a bit, but particularly this area, when this is open and closed and the pillow form removed and put back in, this is the wear and tear. So I'll sew once, flip it over, and sew back again. And if you want, you can, back tack over this. I don't think that's necessary as long as it's sewn twice. So let me go ahead and get this pillow finished, and you're going to see how beautiful it looks. I'm going to sew the first seam on the first side. And what I do is this piece that we sewed along the top and the bottom, and I pressed it towards the back. I'm sewing on the back side, so I'm going to fold this to the back and just sew it down that way. That way it's going to kind of keep the seam going in the direction where I want it. And I'm going to sew just a 1/4 inch seam. And then you can decide how you want to finish it. If you have pinking shears, that's an easy way to do it. And just trim those edges. Alternatively, what you can do is run a zigzag stitch, and I think I might do that. I've got some, you see how we got a little bit of planing here. And when I get here, I'm going to fold this over. Now I want to make sure that I'm not creating a little tuck or a little pleat there. So take it all the way here and then fold it down and over. I'm going to get my seam ripper, my impromptu stiletto, and then I'm just going to turn this over and sew it the other direction. Just to reinforce that stitch. And see, I was doing a 1/4 inch here, and see how I narrowed in there? I'm going to move my needle over just a little bit, just to keep that seam nice and straight. Quick work on that one. Let's go ahead and do the other. Now this too is the back side, so I'm going to fold this towards the back, making sure I'm not creating a pleat, because I don't want the outside fabric to be folded over and tucked in. I'm just doing this so it'll keep that fabric that's sewn going towards the back. It'll just help keep the shape of the pillow where we want it. Okay. this over and hold it in my hand so I'll be ready when we get there. Flip it over and do the other side. Something got a bit twisted, tangled. All right, let me lay that flat and we'll try it again. There we go. That looks better. Last thing I'm going to do is just run a quick zigzag, and let's do one of these little ones. Let's see how wide that one is. And this will also help to reinforce the opening. That's kind of the primary stress point. Let me go ahead and finish this side and the other, and then I'll show you our beautiful finished pillow. Our pillow cover is sewn. We're just going to turn it inside out, right side out actually, and put the pillow form in. Now, if you don't already have a chopstick in your sewing kit, you might want to get one. These are wonderful for turning corners on pillows like this, but even on smaller items. It's amazing how often you'll use it. Now, if you like, you can use the wider piece. I generally use my finger just to push it through first, and then I take the narrower piece and just get that point poking out there. So I'll go through and I'll do all my corners, make sure they look nice. And there's a lot you can do at this point too. Again, it's all about personal taste and what you want to do and what finished look you want. You can press this really well and then just do a narrow seam around that edge, and it just helps crisp up those corners, and that can sometimes make the pillow look a little more, what do I want to say, formed, nice and square. Now, you know, before I put the pillow in, I want to press this. So let me go ahead and do the pressing, and I'll be right back, because I want these sides to be nice and smooth so they lay flat. This easy little envelope closure pillow cover is all finished, and it just looks so nice and pretty. Let's go ahead and get the pillow in here. One of the easiest ways to do it is to sort of fold it in the middle and tuck it in like this. And actually, let's put it in this side, because that's going to be the deeper end. And we just want to get that in there, let it spread out, get it into the corners, and then we can tuck it into the top. And just kind of give it a little toss or two. And look at that, it's beautiful. One thing that I forgot to do before pressing is I realized when I got over there I hadn't cut off the corners. So we do just cut off the tips of those corners, then turn them and press them, and you get a really good point there. And I'll show you that on the next one. So this is where we are, and this is what it looks like. The easy way, just a simple closure. It's an envelope close is what it's called. I want to show you another option. And I like this, and this looks great, but there are times I want to have a pillow that's going to be closed. And sometimes, you know, when it's on a sofa or a chair, it's not so important, but if you have like the large pillows on your bed and you're going to lean up against them, maybe put them against the headboard and use them as a back support, these can tend to shift and open. So I like to put Velcro in here. Now let me show you how I do that. When I want to make a pillow with Velcro, it's pretty much the same thing as what we have here. We have our center pillow, and we do the seam on each side. just like we did on the other one. Now, what I ordinarily would do is take a piece of my fabric and I would double fold it over and then sew this strip. But I was short fabric because I didn't have the full 42 inches that I needed to do the single piece. So I had a piece of this left over, which is the same fabric. It was just cut off another end for another project. And so I used it sort of like a facing. And I just sewed it to this edge, turned it inside out, and this is loose. And actually this is the selvage, so I don't have to worry about that raveling. And so what I did then, let me take these pins out so you can see, is this is the front of the pillow, this is the seam, and this is the bottom of the back. So I just have this narrow strip, and I turned it over 2 times and sewed it, and then I just added the Velcro. So the hook goes on the bottom, and then the loop will go on the top piece. So I have that here, and I'm just pinning it in place so I make sure it's right where I need it when I'm ready. Now I'm going to take the other piece and fold it over. And while it looks like there's quite a bit of fabric here, there really is, but there wasn't enough to go around to that other corner or that other side. So what I'm going to do here is I want to have my overlap be, because remember now, this is going to be the underside. I want my overlap to come over the Velcro and maybe by about 1/4 of an inch. So I want my finished edge on this half to come to about this point. And so if I put my fabric here and fold it back, if I put it right on the stitching line, that's where it's going to be, but I want it to be about 1/4 inch more. Now, I also need to roll it over 2 times. I've got my marker pen. What I'm going to do is add 2 inches right here. And I'm going to just mark that so that I can cut it. And then this is going to create the other piece like this. Go over once and twice. But now I also have to add the overlay on top of that. So this is where I want it to end. And then I need to have 1 inch and 2 inch, which puts me right here. Does that make sense? So I want my top piece to end right about here. So I add 2 inches so I can roll it back. So let me cut that and show you just how that's going to work. Okay, so I have my mark there and my mark there. Whoops. There we go. All right. So I'm going to take this piece and lay it down. This is going to be the top side of the back, the top part of the pillow. I'm going to turn it over once and then twice. And then this is going to be where I'll put my Velcro loops, or excuse me, let's see, yeah, the Velcro loops right here. Because this is the Velcro hook. And I'm going to put that right here so that they overlay. And obviously I have to adjust this however much is necessary so that those fit just right. And so that way I'll have a Velcro closing. So let me go ahead and do that real quick and show you what it's going to look like. It's a great way to finish a pillow if you want to make sure it stays closed. I prefer this over a zipper. I think zippers are fussy, and when you break a zipper, it's tough to deal with. Velcro, I think it lasts forever. All right, let me go ahead and get this done, and then we'll see what we got next. Here's my 18-inch pillow, and doggone it, isn't there a flaw in the fabric? I didn't even notice that. Well, not much I can do about it, but that's okay. I can pull the threads underneath with the needle afterwards. But I did not even notice that whole section right there. Well, that's okay. This is more about where the fabric came from than what the fabric is. And we'll make it work. So here's my front, my 18 by 18. I did my little teeny tiny seams here and here to give myself a good crease so that the pillow will square up nicely. And so we're going to fold that over. And I did a wide hem here so that I can put my Velcro on it. What I'm going to do is put my Velcro on like this. But first, I just want to see how this is going to lay. So this is the bottom side. And this Velcro, if you can see, pretty much lines up at the bottom. So what I'll do is measure the center. Let's see. Yeah, right at 18 inches. So let me get another pin. So here is 9 inches right there. And I use a 12-inch length of Velcro on just about any pillow. Unless it's more than maybe 20 inches, then I may use a piece that's a little bit longer. But there's no need to go all the way out to this edge. This is going to be sewn in the seam. This isn't going to go anywhere. It's just this center section that we want to have secured. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew from here. I'll do a quick cross to tighten up those ends to hold them in place. So here, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to sew across the top of this Velcro edge. And then I am going to come back and do one more. So that'll be 3 visible rows of stitching, but I think that's okay. I think that's going to work out just fine. It's more important to me that this gets secured really well. And I'm trying to think, if I secure this here, this isn't going to go anywhere, but I just don't like the idea of that extra ½ inch. Well, I guess it's only of a 1/4 of an inch kind of flailing around. What do you think? I'm going to go with just the 2 rows of stitching, and let's see where we end up. And if I need to, I can always come back and do that 3rd row. So this is going to fit here, and then this piece will go on top, and we have a Velcro closure. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. And everything is in place just to do the final seams. So I have my right side up. I fold this on the little tiny seam, and I have my Velcro loop side facing upward, and then I'm going to place this right on top of it, just like that. And so now I'm going to sew my 2 side seams, and this is finished. So I'll sew this way and then back again, and the same over there, and then I'll do just a quick clip in the corner. All right, let me go ahead and do that, and I will be right back. The sides are finished with the zigzag to hold everything in place. I'm just to cut off those little corner tips there. Doesn't take much, just enough to reduce that bulk. And we'll turn it inside out. Now the Velcro's attached, so all I have to do is pull it apart. And I just like this. When my kids were little and I made the big floor pillows, I always made sure I put Velcro in it. I guess I was afraid it was going to, come apart, or they'd pull the pillows out. But it's just something that I've done. I've also used some buttons before. And so it's just, there are some options out there. So I'm going to go ahead and push these corners out. Okay, there we are. And now when we put our pillow in, this is going to lay right on top and keep it closed really nice. So let me go ahead and press this, and we'll put it on the pillow. And here's my second pillow all assembled. I'm just going to open up the Velcro. Let me see, I want to put, is there a zipper on this one? Oh, there's a zipper. I like to put the zippers to the bottom. And That way they just don't, become annoying at the top edge. And tuck this in all the way. Those corners are nice and clipped. They are nice and flat. So I'm just going to roll this back. There we go. And pull this up. And just put my Velcro along that edge. Easier said than done. Oh my goodness, it's going to give me a little grief. There we go. All right, and that looks wonderful. So I have a pretty little pair of pink pillows, and they're very easy to do. Look at that, just what we call the envelope closure, and these pillow covers are gorgeous. Now, we're not finished yet. This is the way to make a pillow cover using one continuous piece of fabric. But how about if we use some multiple fabrics? Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, in order to take this one step further, we're still going to use the envelope close, which means they just cross over, but we're going to include some multiple fabrics. And this is a set of fabrics, a collection that I bought at a quilt show when I was out in Arizona, and this is a designer from Texas. I think it's Cordia Designs. I will make sure, because they're wonderful, wonderful prints. And what I'll do is she has an Etsy shop. I'll go ahead and include her link down below. And the other fun thing that she does is she sells 8.5-inch squares of hand-painted her artwork, her watercolor pieces. And obviously they're reprinted onto fabric. But if you like working with panels or using, little squares in the middle of a pillow or making a 4-patch, oh my goodness, and the designs, there's so many. So that would be a fun thing to take a look at. But what I want to show you is how to do a pillow like this. So the very little bit of a difference is just that we cut out our sides instead of keeping it all together in one piece. So we have our primary piece of fabric. This is going to be the front. And it looks, nope, that's 18 by 18. It just didn't look like it was square. Okay, so we have this. Now, instead of just wrapping an end over and over, we're going to sew a rectangle here and sew a rectangle here. So first we're going to put down our larger or primary back piece, and I've already done the 1-inch over like that. So this is going to sew here. And then I'm going to take another one, and I just did the narrow hem on this piece, and this is going to be the bottom side. And so we still get our about 3 to 4 inches of overlap. And now all I do is this. So did you see how easy that was? 18-inch square. This is an 18 by 13. And I do it with a 1-inch hem, a double fold, with an 18 by, this is 11, and I just use a 1/2 inch. And now all I do is sew this, and it's finished. This is so simple. I think this is actually easier and quicker than using the one piece of fabric. For one thing, I love mixing up the fabrics, but this way, I don't have to worry about getting the full 42 inches. There's not as much measuring. I just put these pieces together and it goes together quickly. And look at how beautiful this is. Oh, this is a really great option if you're looking for another style pillow. So I want to show you that. But here's some other ideas. Now, sometimes it's fun to get a little wild and crazy and do a, what is it called? Hold on, I know what it is. A crazy quilt. Hence the word crazy. And just start with something. These are all, some great batiks that I really liked. And I started with some brights and kind of went out in some greens and blues. And there's, a green sort of watercolor. But notice how I finished the edges on this. is I use quilt binding. And that just worked out really well. That was a great way to finish this. Now this also has the Velcro. Again, I tend to like that. And I think the binding on this is a really fun touch. Let me get this pillow out of the way, blocking our light. So I think this is, just a great way to do it. And then do some decorative stitches. And I just started in the middle and went round and round to quilt this. And I think it's great fun. So that's something. And there is a post on the website that you can see, and it shows step by step how that works. But there is one more we have to look at. Actually, it's a combination of three. This is more of my ambrosia fabric that I love. Now, you can tell these pillow forms are a bit too small. When you live on an island, you use what you have, and you can't always get what you need. So what I did is I have pictures that I printed on fabric. You can buy the printer fabric that's pre-cut, and as long as you have an inkjet now, because the ink is going to create a permanent color on these pictures. So these are some wonderful shots. I do not recommend using the transfer where it's fabric, but instead of using, how do I want to say this? It doesn't use an ink. There's a different way when you print it through. It's a different kind of a surface, so that when you wash it, it disappears. It falls off. So I have this fun little crazy quilt that I need to do something, and I'll find, I'll put something in there. I'll get a picture and center that. But you can tell these have been around a while. My kids are in their 30s, and this is when they were in their teens. But check this out. We used to make coconut buttons, and that's how we did the closure on the pillows. Okay, this is Velcro. And what do we have here? Oh, and this is a button. And this is a bit scrunchy. So like I said, we used what we had in order to make it work. But I just wanted to give you some ideas of some different pillows. Pillows are great fun. They make wonderful gifts. They're just a fantastic way to add some color into your home, into your special places. So give it a try. These are great. I think you'll really enjoy it. I hope you had fun watching this. I hope you learned a thing or two and are maybe inspired to try a pillow. I enjoy it. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and share some quilting. I hope you have a fantastic day.